Whether you relate to Tonto in episode 1, who was frustrated about her masters in the middle of dealing with imposter syndrome, or Ponto, the advisor, the go-getter astronaut who seemed to be shooting for the moon, be rest assured of this. Your very first reaction to change, creativity, innovation, or anything progressive altogether is resistance. Downtimes are inevitable if you ever get anything great done in life. I was going through my diary the other day and I came across an interesting line which I had written down during the lockdown. It reads, "I am not afraid to be creative." And then, eureka! I got the idea for this episode. I'll be right back. Stick around. Welcome back. If you're new to this channel, check the description section of the video for the link to part 1 of Tonto and Ponto's story for a very smooth flow into this episode. Today, we'll be focusing on mental frames. Your mental frame, your mindset is very important during a crisis. We often hear that the roadblock to progress, the roadblock to getting a project done or even started in the first place is the mindset, the mental framing. But how then do we get this mind frame to work for us? There are so many words used to describe the state of mind where you're so weak you cannot get your ideas off you. There are many words used to describe the situation which I do not plan to mention in this video. My aim in this video is to take you through the process through which the ideas in your mental framing can be actualized. People often criminalize confusion without realizing it. We have been mentally framed to implicitly talk ourselves down when things are not going on well. You perhaps a research student in the middle of your master's study or a PhD student working on your research proposal, and you don't seem to get the golden thread they've been talking about. Let's say you're a practitioner on the other end. You're busy with diverse community projects and perhaps business-related research as well, and things have been mumbled up together. You don't seem to get the way out of what you're doing. You perhaps implicitly talking yourself down, which is not letting you make headway in what you're doing. You need to develop the courage to be stubborn, to accept confusion as a compulsory state in your progress. Confusion is part of your progress. You need to develop a thick skin to go through difficult times when they come, and they will definitely come. In episode 1, we saw Ponto giving advice to Tonto, who had many insecurities regarding her research work. Ponto seemed to be like the go-getter, the astronaut who had everything all together. But not quite. Let me quickly take you into Ponto's life when she started her PhD study. I'll be right back. She arrived South Africa with so much enthusiasm to commence her doctoral studies in sustainable marketing at the University of Johannesburg. She stayed till late in the library until that horrible announcement we all had to hear. Attention library users. The library closes in 30 minutes. I repeat, the library closes in 30 minutes. I mean, you know the end of the story. Imagine being in the library for 15 hours a day, 6 days a week, and still being confused about how to adapt a theoretical framework innovatively for a research proposal. But wait for this. Ponto handled things differently. She accepted confusion as a form of progress. I know it sounds ridiculous. How possible is that? Let me quickly take you through Ponto's encounter during her research proposal writing. She was guided by this graph. Though very tough, she was intentional about making peace with her confusion. In the first 3 months of writing her proposal, She was in the honeymoon phase or the trough of disillusionment where nothing seemed to work. Neither could she internalize what she was reading. Alas, she started to connect the dots at the end of the third month, which marked the beginning of the slope of enlightenment. Months 4, 5, and 6 saw her through the plateau of productivity, where she could creatively and critically review the literature and provide a snapshot of the theoretical framework, methodology, anticipated outcome, and the contributions to theory, policy, and practice. She eventually finalized her research proposal after 6 months of reading and writing. Done and dusted. D plus D. We have now seen that Ponto, the go-getter, the advisor, didn't always get it right. She also had her days. And she went through those days with courage. She was very stubborn in order to make it. She was stubborn in her courage. She was stubborn in her relationship with God in order to get her through the mess she was in. There is no message without a mess. You need to understand that there will always be a mess around whatsoever difficult phase you are going through. For example, Ponto had to read so many irrelevant papers before she got the right ones. There were times she even had to use a dictionary to understand many research papers that she was being exposed to. It was very tough, but she didn't have plan B. There was only plan A. I challenge you today to be that person who doesn't always look for the easy way out in the face of a crisis. Develop a capacity to increase your strength, to increase your courage, to go through tough times in the middle of a crisis. So you really want to know what I do in my leisure time? Okay, here's my favorite nut shop in a place called Limbo Center in Durban. So I'm here to get a few nuts. Yes, to keep the weight controlled. I like to snack on nuts and not on biscuits and sugary snacks. I try to keep away from sugar generally anyway. So here's my favorite nut shop. Getting some few nuts. It's called Manolis, by the way. Right, so this is what I do to keep in shape. This is a gift shop at the Botanic Gardens. I have never been here. I've been coming to Botanic Gardens for years now in Durban, but I have never been to this store before. Thanks to my friend, prayer partner, mom, what else?
And special friend.
Special friend for letting me know this place, this beautiful place. Wow, so lovely. So this is a very good tip to manage a crisis. Get a very quiet place where you can unwind and just relax. All right, so how did I balance work and family during the lockdown? So we're keeping it real here. I won't stand here and say it was easy. It's been one of the most difficult years for everyone, as you already know. So what really kept me going was having structure in place and keeping to my structure. For example, with homeschooling, I made sure that we followed the same structure throughout the day. Obviously, I couldn't work for most of the day because my daughter had to attend school online, and I couldn't really focus on my own work because my attention was divided between a school, making sure she was all right in the classroom, and that I was also on point with my work. So it was very hectic for me at the onset. But things got better as we moved on in the lockdown, as you would expect. So we had more structure. We built on the structure as we went on. For example, I made sure that I packed a lunch and snack in a class, because we made our guest room a classroom, and I made sure I called it classroom. I didn't call it guest room anymore, just so it registered in her mind that we're at school here, just so she knows. And she also needed to know that school is also different from what we're doing here. It's just that we've shifted base from classroom to the classroom in the house. So that pretty much helped me to get the structure going, and it also helped her to take it seriously. It was tough, definitely, on my work particularly. I couldn't get a lot of things done. I was not in a very good space at all. So I decided to go off social media for a while, particularly Facebook and Twitter. I couldn't even be, responsive or active on Twitter, as well as your other social media platforms. So yeah, that really helped me keeping my focus right, understanding that I couldn't do everything that I would love to do during that period, because it was a crisis anyway. It's still a crisis situation, just that things are better now. Schools have opened, but then it was a lot tougher. So I had to understand that there were things I couldn't get done. It wasn't possible to carry on with life as usual. So I admitted the fact that some things had to fall away. Something has to give anyway. So that helped with homeschooling. With family, we tried our very best to laugh, to make the house very, very creative and fun. We did a lot of movie nights, yes, movie nights, and we made our Sunday services, wow, very epic. we danced as if we were at church. We had fun. We were just ourselves. Online platforms were very useful. I made sure I was involved with work, with collaboration. I carried on with collaboration, although tough. I made sure I was very evident and active at meetings, just to get the discussion going. That really helps a lot, to get things out of your mind. So I was very active on that. So it was really interesting and difficult at the same time. Yeah, so that was how I managed to manage family, work, homeschooling, and life earlier in the lockdown. So next question. So the advice I have for researchers struggling to focus and to get work done is this. First and foremost, you need to understand that you've been through a crisis. Make peace with the fact that you couldn't have done the same amount of work that you would have done if things were normal. So make peace with that. And I'm sure your supervisors or managers must understand that with you as well, hopefully. Now, having done that, you now need to develop a strategy for catching up or for making progress as you go on while in the crisis. One of the books that helped me during my PhD was a book written by Alison Miller, Finish Your Dissertation Once and for All. You see, getting to read that book made me realize that a lot was dependent on my mental shift from a state of not knowing to a state of doing, taking baby steps, one day at a time. So you need to learn to take baby steps and to appreciate that your baby steps are good enough, which helps you to track your progress as you move on in your projects. Another book I would like to recommend is The War of Art, written by Steven Pressfield. That book has been very remarkable in my life in terms of understanding how things are when it comes to being creative. So I would advise that you get that book too. Now, there are different kinds of challenges that researchers face at different times. Let's assume that you're in the middle of collecting your data during the crisis, during lockdown, where there's social distancing and every other precautionary measures to curb the virus. You should now consider adjusting your research proposal, of course, with the approval of your supervisor and the institution, since you might not be able to meet up with your participants or respondents. in reality, face to face. So you might have to consider using other options like, of course, online interviews. You can use Zoom, Google chat room, and the other video conferencing platforms available out there. There's a reason why the word wait exists. It exists so that you can actually apply it. Settle it in your mind that it is okay to be confused. In order to get the genius out of your mental frame, you need to consistently resist the temptation to criminalize confusion. Focus on the things you are focusing on. There's a reason why you are going through that phase, and it's so that you can have a story to tell. You might be worried that your idea might not be good enough. That is okay. It is normal. Great ideas start from messy states. So I look forward to hearing from you in the chat box. Take care of yourself and take it easy. Bye for now.